Have you ever been cruising down the highway and suddenly ended up behind a brand new truck that costs more than most people's houses? You know the one, the massive, gleaming beast with chrome everywhere, leather seats that probably cost more than your monthly rent, and a payment plan that would make a mortgage broker break into a cold sweat. And here's the part that really messes with your head. The person driving it probably makes less money than you do. So what's actually happening here? How are regular people affording car payments that seem to violate the laws of basic math? My name is Tyler, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why people make the financial decisions they do. If you've ever wondered how your neighbor can drive a $70,000 pickup while complaining about grocery prices, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps unravel this modern mystery. Before we dive into the mechanics of how people are pulling this off, let me paint the reality of what we're dealing with. The average new car payment in America has crossed into territory that would have been considered completely unhinged just a decade ago. We're talking about monthly payments that rival rent in many cities, and yet millions of people are signing on the dotted line every single month, driving off lots in vehicles that cost more than the median household income. And here's where it gets wild. Most of these people aren't secret millionaires. They're not crypto kings, trust fund heirs, or lottery winners. They're teachers, nurses, mechanics, retail workers, office employees, regular people with regular jobs who somehow made the numbers work, or at least convinced themselves they did. The truth is, there's an entire system designed to make these impossible payments feel normal. And understanding how it works isn't just about curiosity. It's about protecting yourself from a financial decision that can quietly sabotage your life for the next 7 to 10 years. So let's start with the raw numbers, because when I tell people what the average car payments actually are, they usually assume I'm exaggerating. The average new car payment has climbed past $700 per month. $700, and that's not for a luxury vehicle or exotic sports car. That's the average payment for a regular person buying a regular car. But it gets worse when you look at trucks and SUVs, which have become the default choice for most buyers. Those payments routinely blow past $900 a month, and it's no longer rare to see payments over $1,200. That's $1,200 every single month for 6, 7, or even 8 years. Over the life of the loan, that adds up to more than $80,000, and that's before insurance, fuel, maintenance, or repairs even enter the picture. Now, you might be thinking, well, maybe people are just making a lot more money these days. And I hate to break it to you, but wages haven't increased anywhere near enough to justify these numbers using traditional financial logic. So how are people doing it? The answer lies in a handful of changes that have completely transformed how Americans buy cars, and none of them are good news for the people signing those loan documents. First, let's talk about loan terms. Remember when a car loan was 3 years, maybe 4 if you were really stretching it? Those days are gone. Today's loans regularly run 6, 7, or even 8 years, and some lenders are even offering 10-year car loans, which honestly sounds like something from a financial horror movie. The appeal is obvious. Stretch a $60,000 truck over 8 years instead of 4, and suddenly the monthly payment drops from something like $1,500 to a much more reasonable $900. And that's exactly what buyers focus on, the monthly number. But what most people don't stop to think about while sitting in the dealership is that they're not just lowering the payment, they're dramatically increasing the total cost of the vehicle. That $900 payment over 8 years adds up to more than $86,000 compared to around $72,000 on a 4-year loan, an extra $14,000 just for the privilege of smaller monthly payments. Even worse, by the time they're 5 or 6 years into that loan, the car is often worth far less than what they still owe on it. They're stuck in negative equity, unable to sell or trade without writing a check just to escape the loan. They're still paying for a vehicle long after its value has collapsed. But extended loan terms are only the first trick. The second is the rise of 0% financing and promotional interest rates. Walk into any dealership and you'll see banners screaming 0% APR for qualified buyers, which sounds like free money. But here's what dealers don't want you to understand. It's not free at all. The cost of that financing is baked into the price of the vehicle. You're either paying full price and getting 0% or getting a discount and paying interest. You're not getting both. On top of that, those offers usually require excellent credit and shorter loan terms, meaning the people who qualify are often the same people who could have paid cash anyway. For everyone else, especially buyers with less than perfect credit, interest rates on these long loans can be brutal, quietly adding thousands more to the total cost, while the buyer stays focused on the monthly payment. Then there's the trade-in game, which has become one of the biggest engines keeping this whole system running. Here's how it usually goes. Someone buys a car on a 6 or 7 year loan. 3 or 4 years later, they're bored of it or want something newer, but they still owe more than the car is worth. Instead of paying the difference, they roll that negative equity into a brand new loan on an even more expensive vehicle. Now they're paying for a car they no longer own while simultaneously taking on debt for a new one. Their loan balances keep growing, even though they're making payments every month. It's a financial hamster wheel. The harder you run, the further behind you get. Dealerships love this setup because it creates customers for life. Once someone is trapped in negative equity, they're effectively stuck cycling through vehicles, unable to break free without writing a massive check just to reset their finances. And maybe the most unsettling part of all is how completely normalized these extreme payments have become. People who would never consider spending $1,200 a month on anything else somehow convince themselves it's reasonable for transportation. Think about it. If someone told you they were spending $1,200 on coffee, you'd probably stage an intervention. But slap 4 wheels and a badge on it, and suddenly it feels responsible, practical, even necessary. That's how powerful this system has become. It doesn't just sell cars, it sells the idea that debt is normal, that struggle is standard, and that long-term financial stress is simply the price of looking successful in a parking lot. The automotive industry has become terrifyingly good at tapping into these psychological triggers. They don't really sell cars anymore. They sell lifestyles, fantasies, and social status. That commercial showing a rugged truck crawling up a mountain isn't about getting from point A to point B. It's selling you the idea that you're the kind of person who climbs mountains, even though the closest you've ever gotten to off-roading is parking on grass at the county fair. And once you're not just buying a vehicle, but buying into an identity, that $900 payment stops feeling like a financial decision and starts feeling like an investment in yourself. But let's get back to how people are actually making these payments work in real life, because even with extended loan terms and emotional justification, $700 to $1,200 a month is still a massive hit for most households. This is where things get creative, and by creative I mean potentially catastrophic for long-term financial health. Many people are restructuring their entire lives around their car payment, treating it like a second mortgage and adjusting everything else accordingly. I've seen people move into smaller apartments, delay moving out of their parents' houses, or keep roommates years longer than they planned, just so they can afford their dream truck. They'll eat ramen noodles for lunch while commuting in a vehicle that costs more than some people's houses. They'll skip vacations, avoid restaurants, delay medical care, and put off major life goals, all to support a car payment that quietly eats 25 to 30% of their take-home income. Some people take on second jobs specifically to pay for their vehicle. They'll drive rideshare or deliver food on weekends, often using the same expensive truck they're trying to afford, turning their car into both their master and their means of survival, a kind of automotive indentured servitude, where your freedom machine becomes the very thing chaining you down. Others dip into retirement accounts or take loans against their 401ks to cover down payments, repairs, or negative equity from previous vehicles. They're borrowing from their future selves to fund their present transportation fantasies. And since most people are terrible at understanding the true cost of early withdrawals, they don't realize they might be sacrificing hundreds of thousands of dollars in long-term wealth for a truck that'll be worth pocket change in a decade. Then there's the credit card shuffle, which has become shockingly common. Maintenance, repairs, insurance, gas, all of it goes on high-interest cards just to free up cash for the monthly car payment. They're using toxic debt to subsidize transportation, which is like using a blowtorch to light a cigarette. Technically it works, but it's probably not the smartest life strategy. The most alarming trend I've seen, though, is people taking out personal loans or tapping home equity to cover down payments or roll over negative equity from previous vehicles. They're leveraging appreciating assets to buy depreciating ones, which is basically the financial equivalent of lighting your savings on fire to keep your driveway warm. Your house should be building wealth. Your car should be getting you from point A to point B as cheaply and reliably as possible. When your home starts funding your car habit, the equation has completely flipped. And here's where it gets even more intense. A lot of people aren't making these sacrifices for just one vehicle. They're doing it for multiple cars. The average American household now owns more vehicles than licensed drivers, which is mathematically impressive and financially terrifying. It's not uncommon to see families juggling 2 or 3 car payments at once. Dad has his truck, mom has her SUV, and there's a third vehicle for the teenager or weekend adventures. Suddenly, their combined car payments exceed their housing costs. These households have accidentally turned themselves into personal auto financing companies, except instead of earning profit, they hemorrhage money every month. They're managing multiple depreciation schedules, insurance policies, maintenance cycles, and loan terms. It's like running a small business where the inventory loses value every day and the cash flow is permanently negative. Psychologically, this does something wild to people. They become experts at juggling due dates and minimum payments, but they lose sight of the bigger picture entirely. They'll celebrate paying off one car loan while simultaneously signing up for 2 new ones. They measure success by keeping the plates spinning, instead of questioning why they're spinning plates at all. Then there's insurance, the cost that almost nobody fully factors in when they're calculating affordability. Insuring a $60,000 truck costs dramatically more than insuring a $20,000 sedan. Add comprehensive coverage, collision, gap insurance, and all the extras lenders require for expensive vehicles, and suddenly you're staring at premiums that can easily exceed $200 a month. For families with multiple high-end vehicles, insurance alone can hit $500 a month or more, $6,000 a year just for the privilege of legally driving depreciating assets on public roads. Most people focus so hard on negotiating the monthly payment that they completely forget to account for insurance until they're sitting in the agent's office getting slapped with reality. Maintenance costs are the next ambush. Modern trucks and SUVs are rolling supercomputers packed with advanced tech, complex emission systems, and premium components. When something breaks, and it will, the repair bills can be brutal. A basic brake job can run $800 to $1,200. Transmission issues can hit $5,000. Major engine work can blow past $10,000. Most people carrying extreme car payments have zero emergency fund for these inevitable repairs, which means they end up throwing them on credit cards or stacking more loans on top of existing debt. And that's how a manageable car payment quietly morphs into a debt spiral that can take years to escape. You'll see pristine $70,000 trucks parked in driveways while their owners are checking couch cushions for gas money. It's like wearing a Rolex while living on ramen. Technically impressive, but completely missing the point. Fuel costs alone on these massive vehicles can approach what people used to pay for entire car payments a decade ago. When you're driving something that gets 15 miles per gallon in real-world conditions and gas bounces between $3 and $5 a gallon, you're easily looking at $300 to $400 a month just to commute. Add a few road trips or weekend drives, and that number climbs fast. But here's where the math turns from uncomfortable to horrifying. Let's walk through a completely normal scenario that most people never actually calculate. Say someone buys a $55,000 truck with a 7-year loan at 6% interest. Their payment comes out to about $800 a month, which feels reasonable compared to the $1,200 they'd face on a shorter loan. Over 7 years, they'll pay roughly $67,000 for the vehicle. Add insurance at $250 a month, and that's another $21,000. Fuel at $350 a month adds nearly $29,000. Maintenance and repairs over 7 years easily hit $15,000, probably more. Add it all up, and this person spends over $130,000 on transportation. And at the end of those 7 years, they own a truck worth maybe $15,000 if they're lucky. That's not transportation financing, that's wealth destruction with cup holders and heated seats. The most depressing part? What that same money could have done instead. If someone took that $800 monthly payment and invested it in a simple index fund, earning 8%, they'd have over $70,000 after 7 years, and that's without counting the insurance, fuel, and maintenance savings. They wouldn't just avoid financial stress, they'd actually build wealth instead of torching it. But here's the psychological trap that makes this cycle so hard to escape. Once people commit to massive car payments, they develop what I call automotive Stockholm syndrome. They become emotionally bonded to their financial captor. The truck isn't just transportation anymore. It's proof of their success, their grind, their worth. The idea of driving something cheaper feels like admitting failure, like stepping down the social ladder. So when someone suggests a reliable used car and an extra $500 in monthly breathing room, they don't hear a smart financial strategy. They hear an attack on their identity. They'll defend their car payment with the same passion they defend their family, even while that payment quietly sabotages their family's future. And the automotive industry understands this psychology better than most people understand themselves. They've spent billions studying how to trigger these emotional reactions and convert them into signatures on loan contracts. Walk into any dealership and notice what they don't talk about: total cost of ownership, opportunity cost, or long-term wealth impact. Instead, they talk about monthly payments, instant gratification, and status. Payment too high? Let's extend the term. Worried about repairs? Finance an extended warranty. Nervous about depreciation? Don't worry, you'll probably trade it in for something newer in a few years anyway. The entire process is engineered to bypass logic and feed emotion. So that's the real answer to how people are affording these insane car payments. They're not, in any meaningful or sustainable sense. They're surviving them through extended loan terms, emotional storytelling, financial gymnastics, and quiet sacrifices that rarely show up in Instagram posts. They're kicking the financial can down the road while convincing themselves they deserve that shiny truck. And the next time you see someone driving a vehicle that costs more than your house, just remember there's a decent chance they're eating cereal for dinner to afford it. And suddenly, that reliable used car in your driveway starts looking a whole lot smarter.